Hey everybody, this is Rich working on the master bathroom. So I'm getting ready to tile the shower walls, and I wanted to make a quick video to kind of explain how to go about determining the tile layout. So we purchased a 12 by 24 tile that usually it's not exactly 12 by 24. Usually it's like 11 and 5/8 or 11 and a half to 23 and a half, somewhere in that range. And so obviously they're taking into consideration that you're going to be putting spacers in between for grout joints. And I have 8-foot ceilings, and ideally, if you had 12 and you stacked them horizontally, you would end up having 8 foot, but it's never exactly right, so you have to make adjustments. And the best way that I've found to determine what the layout ought to be, or how you want to lay out your tile, is to get a story stick. So this is the story stick that I created, and I actually created two versions. So one version, I laid out my tile on the floor with the stick alongside it, and I laid the tiles vertically so that that if I wanted to lay the tiles in vertical fashion, I would have measurements for where the tiles end and where the grout lines are. So at every length, I would have my grout lines where they ought to be. And it tells me how many tiles I can put in on the shower wall, but it also allows me to determine, to allow for a full tile at the top of the shower wall, so that when you look at it, you see a full tile at the top. And then I can obviously scribe to the shower floor for the base tile, the last tile that's there. So that's one way to actually get a pretty accurate depiction of how your layout is going to be if you were to do it vertically. Or I did another version where I put the tile horizontally so that my the height is, rather than your 23 and 7/8, whatever it ended up being, now it's going to be 11 and 3/4 with my grout lines, and I can see how many tiles it's going to take to be able to do that. And one of the reasons why I had to make this adjustment is because of the way that my niche is set up. Unfortunately, I wanted to do it vertically. That was my initial intent. We were thinking of doing it stacked, not a running bond. We were going to do a stacked version vertically. But the problem is when you do that and you have a really large tile, you have this separation right here where it's it breaks up the look of it, first of all. But then to have a full tile at the top that's 24 inches means I'm going to have a really small section right here. So it kind of loses the effect. It's one of the things that you have to contend with when you're determining what the layout is going to be. The other issue that I was running into is at the bottom, doing it vertically, I was getting, you can see here, this is the bottom of the stick. This would be my first full tile, and below that would be this distance to the floor. So it was really like an inch and a quarter, inch and a half. So I'd have a really small tile at the bottom, all the way around the bottom. And I didn't really like that idea. So that's when I decided, well, let me go ahead and try it to do it horizontally, to see if that would make an impact on the height of the tile that's at the bottom, so that I wouldn't have such a small sliver. Unfortunately, it's just about the same, a little bit different. It was a little bigger, but it was still a sliver. Initially, this was the way that the stick was showing up. Rather than having a full tile right here just below the ledge, I was going to have a shorter piece, which is not terrible, but you know, I'd prefer to have a full piece right here and then a full piece right there. But you know, I have to make a compromise, you know, into being able to lay this tile out. So what I decided to do was, um, if I shifted everything up to this area, if I shifted it up to here, I'd have a full tile starting right at the top of this ledge. So you'd have a full tile there, so you'd have a nice effect there. Your grout line would be right along this area right here. And then I would have a half tile right here as a running bond. But then a byproduct of shifting it up would cause my first full tile to raise up some, which would give me about a half a tile for the bottom. So I got a tile at the bottom and a half a tile at the top, and I also have a half a tile all the way at the top as well. About equal amounts, so give or take. So it will look a little better by doing that. So I've made adjustments to my story stick. Initially my story stick was much taller, but I removed 4.5 inches from the top of the stick to be able to push it up and get to the grout line that I needed right here. So that's how I determined my layout. If you end up if you create your story stick and you end up having a full tile at the top, and then you also end up having pretty close to a full tile at the bottom, or even a half tile, it doesn't have to be a full tile, you'll be doing fine and it'll look okay, because most people want to look at the top. Your eye kind of goes towards the top, and and as long as it looks right, what you have at the bottom is not as important. But the tile that was at the bottom was only going to be 1 inch. It was going to be so small, and it was just going to look odd because everything else was huge, that I had to make adjustments. And so that's why I ended up raising everything by 4.5 inches and shifting my grout lines and shifting where my initial tile was going to start. So by doing that, now I can take this pole and I can transfer the marks from the story pole to the actual wall itself, so that I can make lines on the shower wall all the way around. I can just get a laser level and make lines all the way around the wall. So this little contraption kind of saves you a little bit of time and aggravation in planning the process. So the next step for me is to take this first tile, and I've cut some boards so that I can create kind of a ledger board for this area. So I'm gonna draw my lines, and then I'm gonna get this ledger board in place and nail it up so that I have something for my first row of full tiles to sit on. So that's how I'm gonna start laying the tile, is right there. And then after that's cured, I'll do the bottom one that goes to the floor, and I can scribe that to the appropriate size that it needs to be. But this way, with the ledger board and putting it on a level, will make sure that my rows will be level as well as I go up. Okay, so make a mark right here. Make a mark right there. So let's check it one more time to make sure that it's level. That's pretty good right there. So now we got our ledger boards for where our first full tiles are going to be. And now I can just use a laser line to do the rest of, to make sure that I'm still level as I go and square as I go. But this will keep me from getting too far out of whack. And it should also get me to where I have a full tile when I get to this one as well. And that way I got a full tile that starts right here, and then a full tile right there, and then a half tile up there. Hopefully this gives you some guidance as to how to go about laying out a shower tile, or any wall tile for that matter, just to take into consideration the actual height of the wall that you have, the height and the width and the length of the tiles that you have, your grout lines and how thick you make your grout lines, the spaces in between, all are taken into consideration when you lay this out. And making sure that you don't have weird cuts in different places. Like, you don't want to have, I didn't want to have a tile where it ended like right here, because then I got this real tiny sliver right here, and cutting that to make it fit could be done, but you have a greater chance of cracking this tile when you're trying to cut it. So just making your cuts a lot easier, making your life a lot easier on yourself when you're creating it, and it will look, you'll have a better finished product in the long run if you do so. If you like this video, please hit the like button or subscribe to my channel, better yet. And please let me know if you have particular ways in which you lay out tile, and I'd be happy to hear other people's thoughts and ideas, because there's always a better way to do this. This just happened to be the way that I chose how to do it, but certainly always willing to learn something new. So alright folks, until next video, I will talk to you soon.